Okay, so I have cleaned up my cylinder heads pretty much. I put them in those little tubs, boiled water and Dawn dish soap, and poured the hot water and the soap on there. Now these springs, right? There's two sets of springs, and the valves are here, which you can see on the bottom, right there. So the springs return the valves to the closed position, and on the stem, the metal stem of the valve, there's a seal. See those little blue and metal, and it's got like a spring on it. Those are the seals that go on the valves. So when you're cleaning, avoid the spring area. So, you know, I did that with hot water. I broke my own rule and I sprayed some carb cleaner on the fins and some Bike Bright on the fins, but I was avoiding the spring area, and I had the springs up. That way it wouldn't drain into it. You can see the valves and the exhaust ports there, and you want to kind of avoid the ports as well if you can. But and there is the seals. This one still had the torque cone and the let me see if I can grab one of those torque cones and the exhaust port gasket whenever I was cleaning it. So this guy was on there pretty hard. This is a torque cone. It sits on the exhaust port. That way when the exhaust gas goes out, so maybe a brief period before it closes the valve, that you can have exhaust gas coming back in. So this is to add some back pressure and prevent reversion of gases. That way it kind of goes on the outside. But he was welded on there pretty good. So to get him off, I had to get a heat gun and some needle nose pliers, heat it up, and then he finally came off. And my exhaust port gaskets look pretty bad. So glad I got them off, that way I could replace those. But like I said, avoid the spring area and you should be good. I'm gonna grab a spark plug, put it in there, and show you the combustion chamber. Screw, this is my old spark plug, a NGK Iridium spark plug. Hammer recommends colder plugs, something to do with the higher compression and the rate of the burn. So colder plugs burn slower, which can help prevent detonation, I believe. So he's in there pretty good. I'll get the viewfinder back on if I can. Firm tap. But okay, so you can see the spark plug right there, and these open. So as you spin over the wheel, these are opening and closing. So if you stick a screwdriver through here, be careful, you don't want to hit the valves. So I cleaned the bottom side of this pretty directly, you know, that sort of thing. But through the edges, it should have a pretty good seal with the spring force on there. But essentially, the piston comes up straight, flat against this, essentially. It's dished a little bit, so it'll come out a little bit on the aftermarket ones. But it comes pretty close in here, so you don't have a lot of volume as it compresses. So there'll be 2 up and down motions for each cycle, 4 strokes. So intake, this will open as it goes down. This will close, it'll compress, spark, explode, it'll go down. There's exhaust in here. This will open, it'll come up again, pushing out the exhaust. There might be some moment of time where these are both open. Hopefully my whole explanation was visible on the camera there. But you can see your spark plug. It doesn't sit in there too deep, but that's pretty much it. But yeah, the exhaust port gasket goes around here. There's some O-rings that go up in there. And the intake, there's not much on that side. But like I said, you can kind of see on the side of the spring, the valve stems. I'm not sure if you can see the seal in there. You can kind of see the seal. And like I said, my idea was that the seals were good before the bike came off, so they should be good after. It would be nice to replace these, but you need a spring compressor, which looks like a C-clamp. So it goes on here, pushes this down, and has a little end that goes against the valve itself. Compresses it. There's two little keepers or valve locks on the stem that just sort of sandwich around it, and it has a spring force kind of holding it in place. Then there's the seal, and then there's a valve guide and some sort of a bottom tray for the springs. Since there's two springs, there's two levels on that. But I'll point you to a video on replacing these guys. I think the tool's only 20 bucks on Amazon, but I was looking online. They put some sort of like a glue around the seal. So, you know, I figure it's probably safe to keep what I got. I have the new seals, but the problem is if you want to replace this, to really get the compressor on there, you got to have the head off. There are some automotive ones that'll come on the top and remove it. So you could theoretically do it on the bike, but it's much easier to do it with it off the bike. But I was on the fence. I called Harley. They don't want to work on older bikes, so they referred me to another shop. But they were wanting 2 hours labor at like 105 per hour. You know, maybe that's just the go away rates. But you figure at least an hour to do all four of these guys. And, you know, 1 hour labor is more than the tool costs. So, you know, probably better off doing it yourself. But $20 tool and the potential of doing it wrong, right? So if you do it, you mess up your seal, you'll get blue smoke out of your exhaust on startup, that sort of thing. So if you have smoke coming out your exhaust, that's either the rings or the seals. And you can do a compression test, and that should show up a bad valve seal on a compression test or a leak down test. Definitely the leak down test. But yeah, so these are the cylinder heads. There's a spark plug. There's the valves. This is much cleaner. I mean, it's not perfect. If you pulled this out, you know, some people will get like a Dremel or a wire wheel or something to clean off everything. But yeah, you know, I figure I'll chance it. You can kind of see the keepers on the top. See those little notches? So they just sort of go to the side, but the spring force holds it in position. But I'll take my chances. Hopefully I don't have any issues with smoke coming out my exhaust from the valve seals. But the gasket is a riveted gasket. So these rivets, on some applications, you might have to take this rivet off. But if you have a stock head like I do, you can just leave it there and it kind of sits on the outside. Let me see if I can hopefully not puncture my table here. But see how they kind of sit on the exterior. They should hopefully be off that gasket surface completely. But I say stock gaskets, it'll kind of sit like that, where it won't be, you won't have to cut it, essentially. But this is the gasket that matters, because it's going to have most of the force. The one on the bottom, you know, it has the kind of the cylinder skirt protecting it. And the piston has a lot of rings protecting it. This will be the head gasket where people have problems. But, you know, this is a high quality gasket. There's not much to do to it. I cleaned it off. I mean, you get a razor blade and kind of go side to side, 90 degrees to the surface, and that'll clean it pretty good. But you can cut into it with the razor blades. Also have these little plastic razor blades. Not sure if you can see through that, but these little plastic guys to kind of do the first layer, and then finally, when you're done, get under there with the real razor blade. And you can kind of wipe on it. Like I said, I soaked this in boiling water. I think I used 2 pots of boiling water per head. Lots of Dawn dish soap. And then I put some carb cleaner on the sides. Brake cleaner's pretty corrosive, so you don't want to use that. It's not perfect. Some of this if you took it to a machine shop, they would sandblast it or media blast it to get it more perfect. But, you know, I think over time the new cylinders will get dirtier and it'll start to match, that sort of thing. But yeah, so watch out with the springs when you're cleaning. You don't want to have a bad valve seal. But yeah, and I put the bike right just on the sides, rinsed it off after, 10, 15, 30 seconds, a couple minutes maybe. But you don't want to leave that stuff on there for a very long time. And as I was rinsing it, I kept the springs up. That way water wouldn't collect in the bowl and get to them. And you kind of have to watch out for the ports, because that can get to them as well. But, the best option would be to replace it. But you got to find someone who knows what they're doing to replace that, because that's something they typically wouldn't do on anything late model, because it would be new to begin with. But I guess I'll put it on. I'm still on the fence with replacing the valve seals, but I guess I'll roll with it, and I can always take it off again if I have to, but hopefully I won't have to. Well, two little locating pins on the back. Three, four. Okay, so there's little O-rings in there that need to get replaced. They are tapered, so the taper goes up. And they say, you get the push rod tube and push it up from the bottom. I guess that helps it seal. That down. That one locating down. Let's just get the screws. The screws. So that's bad, having that little lip there. But you go over the tube and push it on. So nice and flat. And you go through like this and try to apply even pressure. But I've noticed if you let it just sit by itself, untouched, it'll loosen itself. Okay. Now I'll get the head, set it on there for hallelujahs. Let's see here. The push rod tubes is what matters. Everything else can be adjusted afterwards. Got it from the top. Now the question is, where the head bolts at? There's one. There's a second. Yeah, I'm kind of on it. You would think that it would lock into place. I think we're good. Dab oil under the head here. Just a little drop on the threads. Okay, so the rivet is free on both ends, which was my concern. I didn't want to smash them. The bolts went in, so we are in the correct position. Let's get the torque sequence. So, you can see that. There you go, good view. But 1, 2, 3, 4. So I need to determine if that's reverse from the removal order. So intake short is number 1. 9 foot-pounds. So intake to 10. That's 9. Oops, sorry. That's 9. Nine. 9. One, 2, oops, the handlebar. 3. Oops, I might have spun my color a little bit. Okay, 14. 22. 22. I'm not sure if I mentioned, but there's a little bit of oil on the threads and a little bit of oil on the bottom of the bolt head to make it turn smoothly. There's 22. $35. $35. $35. $35. That seemed pretty close. Oh, no. Yeah, there we go. That was probably just a click from something else. Hopefully not anything breaking. that is done. Hallelujah. I'm having trouble with one of my pushrod tubes, but my hope is that none of these guys just leak like crazy as soon as I turn it on. But the gaskets like to move in their seats, essentially. So I'm not sure what the torque spec is on this, but I will get it good and tight, as they say. Either way. Locating down. Like that. Dun dun. Dun dun. Dun dun. So that gasket, he doesn't like there. I put some super glue on it. But he does not like it. I'll try squeezing them on one more time. But what can you do? If he leaks, he leaks. So there really should be a fastener on the back side as well. Would be my take of this. 2 fasteners, you know, because it feels like it'll hold it on the front pretty good, but the back side not so much. But okay, let's put on the cylinder head. Line the balance. Piece of junk. That really needs to be all the way down to catch that little locating pin. So the trick here is to use your eyes through the holes to ensure that everything's hitting its mark. Something can come from the back. And I will eyeball the pushrod tube's foist. And then I will eyeball bolts. Bolts. That's bolts. That's push down. That's bolt. That's bolt. Strut tubes are there. Bolt, 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 bolts. I think I have a short bolt in eyeball range as well. Let's put this down. And just finger start. And the locating dowels should do their job of locating. Yeah, looks like everything's pretty well aligned. Whoa, this top guy. This guy. Some oil on the head. Some oil on the bolt. Okay, so it's torque, 10 foot-pounds. 9 rather. Nine. think I might get the extension for the short bolts. 15, 14. On there, good. So this needs to leave extension. Fourteen. I might not like it, but if it works, man. 1, 2. 3. Torx back 35. Perfect. Tighten up exhaust side. Fine. 35. 35. 35. And assuming I don't get oil spewing everywhere. Now 14. Then it will have been a success. That was just metal sound, not click sound. Let's try that again. There we go. There we go. Okay. Now what? Rocker box gaskets, rocker box covers. This is front cylinder, brown and pink. Pretty sure that's right. Get the other cylinder. Brown. Oh, brown's on the inside. Brown and pink. Okay. So this guy's in top dead center. I just did it my old way with the sweet and low packet, but the rods would look pretty low on each side. Maybe the intake's a little bit higher than this guy, but the gasket does not matter which way it goes on, as long as the holes line up. I cleaned off the front rocker a little bit. It wasn't very dirty to begin with, you know, but just get old oil off the mating surface, that sort of thing. So set it on there, and starts with the big going to small, and I'll have to look up the torque specs on that guy here in a bit. But let me grab the guy, hopefully not spill oil. Gasket's on. Be sure that we're putting it on the right way. Be this way. And that the rocker fits on properly. I want him all tweaked up. Gonna line up my gasket some. The 3 screws are a good way to line it, if that makes sense. Gonna move this out. 1, 2. Make sure that these guys, okay, I need to lift up because my rockers have rotated too much. Okay. He's good. He's good. I think we're lined up. It does feel like we have a lot of height. If that makes sense. Figured this would sit pretty flush. Hopefully he'll sink down, or I'll quickly find that I'm not in the top dead center, I think. to 18. The bike is on a jack. Let it rock a bit. Cool. That's just a 6-point socket. 12-point like the big bolts. It's starting to get there. Starting to get there. That one doesn't like this socket extension. Rather. One. I'm gonna get this guy. Set that down. There's my glove. The extra grip. There we go. Perfect. And extension. We are on 13. Okay, inch pounds, a smaller torque wrench. It's Newton meters actually, but look at you. 12.4. Alright, we're torqued down, sir. Now we have to wait 30 minutes to an hour for the lifters to bleed down. There's no oil in here, so hopefully that won't take too long. But I will put the oil filter back on, plug the oil hole, and start filling up with oil in the meantime. But take a break here at camera and convene here in a bit. Okay, we're recording. So I got impatient and I went ahead and put these covers on. So it's just gaskets and setting things. So up in a new umbrella valve, it goes to the intake side. This gasket just sits on there. And this guy sits over that gasket. Assuming I could set him down correctly. Make sure everything's set right. It looks good to me. Get that corner again. That corner's freaking me out, man. I pulled him off. These wires. But probably shouldn't have touched it. But I wanted to demonstrate. As you can see, I'm going to go ahead and set this one on top. That way I don't fudge up the gasket. Maybe set them all down at the same time. Make sure that that guy sits in his home. Okay, that seems pretty good. Set both of these down. Down. Kind of is an assembly. And this guy I'm gonna lift up just to look. Yeah, he seems legit. And then there's fiber gaskets on here. I pull off the old ones, put on the new ones, and then the last 4 screws, and then this cylinder's done. I'm still waiting for these to bleed down. There's oil in the bike now. And I cleaned this guy up a bit. And I still need to clean up the other side. But once these bleed down, which I probably already have, I can spin it over, put the rocker assembly on the left side. And then that's essentially it. I'm concerned about my pushrod tubes leaking oil. If that happens, it's probably take heads off again, which would really suck, but you know, stuff happens. But if it leaks a little bit, maybe I'll just live with it until I get through the heat cycles and pass the 1 mile and 2 mile test runs, that sort of thing. But I'm gonna get the fiber gaskets, finish this piston off, and then spin over the tire. It's not perfect on the bottoms, but they don't have to be, because the fiber gasket will act as the interface. I'm going to do the top sides first, because gravity is leaning it away from this side. Appears to be the case. One. Two. Three. Or go over again. Okay, so he's done. Now the question is, can I turn it over? So he blew. I think that's it right there. Feels like it's rotating as it hits. It's really up there. Okay, so he's good. Okay, so I have this gasket on. I just gotta line up the holes, set the rocker assembly over the rockers. This one might be a little bit more difficult on account of lack of clearance. I believe I came out from this side when I was putting it together. In fact, I think I might take out the bolts if I can. I think I'm caught up on something. Probably a bolt. Oh, he's back in the front. Be reverse order, but what can you do? Alright. There we go. Perfect. Oh. So now I'll put in push rod tubes off edge. Oh yeah, pink over here. Like to get it in there. I need to back some guys out. So he's loose. On mine, this went so smoothly. Set it on there. You know? Okay, so 17 sounds good to me. Oh, God. This guy should already be there. And he is. Okay, yes. It's got the back. Pin down would be the question. Good. It's good. That's good. It's real tight. So he's on. I should not spin anything over for 30 minutes. Okay. So what's left? Gaskets. And then rotate these stupid covers into position. And then that's about it. So let's get some gaskets. It's essentially done at this point. Because 4 cover bolts is hardly as bad as what we just did. The worst part, I would say, is loosening the cylinder head bolts, which isn't hard, it just doesn't sound nice. Torquing everything down was easy. Rotating over the engine, once you did it 5 times, you get used to it. Now I just hope that I don't have an oil leak at the end of the day. Okay. Umbrella valve is on the intake side. This guy rotates in ever so gracefully. I don't think he like rotated out. Not like this, but like that. I think it's like this side first, and rotates in to position. There we go. So he's on there. One more gasket. So this gasket goes on thusly. And the cover goes on, but I have one of those fiber gaskets stuck really bad, and I don't feel like fighting another one of those because the first one had the same situation. But last cover goes on, 4 less bolts, and that's about it. So I'll call it done for now. Maybe I'll come back and add on the last cover placement, but I think that's pretty decent for now. I mean, technically I should probably cover up these intake ports, that sort of thing. I'll have a clean towel somewhere. The exhaust ports probably should do the same, but you know, it's not that bad. But yeah, only thing I hope for now is that nothing leaks. The color match, I mean, this is definitely brighter, but it's not that bad. I can clean in between these fins better, probably, especially around here. The intake manifold will be next. I'll probably put the exhaust on there just so it's out of my living room. And test fit the car to be sure the manifold's in the right spot. Then ignition coil, all that sort of thing. Premium gas instead of regular gas. And then 10-second cycle, 20-second cycle, then I think it's a 40-second cycle, and then 1 mile ride, 2 mile ride, then 500-mile break-in. And I'll probably change the oil around 100 miles. I say 50, but you know, I figure split the difference between 100 and 500, and 500 will take me a while, so I'm just going to change the oil and ride it regularly until I hit 500. Keep it low RPMs, that sort of thing. But yeah, the engine's pretty well done. I guess I could put a cover over the rocker assembly, or I could just set. Oh, that thing had a piece of metal and got right in my finger. What was that from? Yeah, but straight piece of metal, which is interesting. Oh yeah, I think it was this cover right there. But I'll set the cover on there just so it protects it. So I'll just set that like that for now. And call it a day. See ya.